it's like your handwriting. You don't find your handwriting. Your handwriting finds you. Instead of trying to paint like this person or paint like this person, I just painted. And I think that's what people need to do, is they need to just get to the easel and just paint from their heart and not so much from their head. Because I think sometimes when we paint from the head, you're painting paintings, but when you're painting from your heart, then you're painting art, then you're creating art.
Welcome to the BoldBrush Show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold brush. My name is Laura Ringobert, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world in order to hear their advice and insights. On today's episode, we sat down with Elizabeth Robbins, a floral still life artist whose passion for flowers began during her childhood and has now remained her favorite subject to paint. Elizabeth tells us about her path, going from being an athlete to picking up a brush and never setting it down, while studying decorative arts all the way through her shift into fine art. She also talks to us about how painting not only helped her support her family full-time after her husband's sudden passing, but it also helped her find healing and inspiration in the creative process. Elizabeth also reminds us to paint from the heart and to present yourself as a professional artist, even if you're not full-time yet, by having such things as a website and an organized portfolio. She also emphasizes the importance of using online platforms to get your work seen, since that can become a major sales channel either for your work or for your courses or workshops. Finally, Elizabeth tells us all about her online classes on inspiredtopaint.com, as well as her upcoming workshop. Welcome, Elizabeth, to the BoldBrush Show. How are you today?
I am doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm happy to have you. I am such a fan of people who paint flowers. I absolutely love people who paint flowers, because the way that people like you who paint flowers, the way that you do it, it's just, I don't know, I find that it has such poetry in it. I feel like a lot of people who are like you are very poetic. And especially when I was reading on your website how even as a child you collected flowers and you pressed them, and I thought that was so cute. There's just something about your work that I think I would love to have one of your pieces hanging on my wall because I could just stare at it for hours.
Well, that's the biggest compliment you could have given me. So thank you. I love that word poetry, the poetry of the painting, poetry of flowers. I love that. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, there's just always something in the brushstrokes and in the expression of flowers that, I don't know if I could pull it off that well. You definitely inspire me to try, but I love it. But before we dive more into your work, do you mind telling us a bit more about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am Elizabeth Robbins, and I am a floral still life artist. But I am a mother to three great children, and one daughter-in-law, and a fantastic 3-year-old granddaughter named Georgia Grace, who we absolutely all adore and love and keeps us laughing. But yeah, I love painting. I have always been really creative, and I'll always working with my hands and things like that. And but who am I? If my brother says, Liz, there are people who love flowers, and then there's you, and you take it to a whole nother level. So I am just somebody who absolutely loves flowers, and that's why I paint them. So that's who I am. And a gardener.
I was gonna mention that, yeah, because you mentioned earlier how you also have a garden. Like you have a beautiful studio, which you showed me, and of course for our listeners, I recommend checking out either Elizabeth's website or the video once it comes out, so you guys can see it. But yeah, so you grow your own flowers, right? That you put in your
I
paintings.
do. Yeah, I do, and that's always been really important to me, to be able to grow the flowers. And it's this whole process for me for painting. It's just planting the seeds of the plant, watering, nurturing, weeding. I mean, I even go out there and I talk to the flowers. So people ask me, "How do you get your roses to grow so well?" And I say, I go out there and say, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and they respond to that. And in fact, my daughters once told me, they were out in the garden one time and they said, "Mom, your flowers love you." And I said, "Well, it's mutual." But so it's that whole process of beginning to end, from planting them, watering them, caring for them, cutting them, bringing them to the studio, and putting their life force on canvas. That's just what I love to do. And so, yeah, I built my studio back in 2016. It was always a dream of mine to have a studio where I could just walk out, cut my flowers, and bring them in and paint. So I accomplished that dream. I have over 100 rose bushes that take a lot of time, but I have peonies, daylilies, pansies. I have fruit trees, apple, peach, apricot. I have blackberries, blueberries. It's grapes. It's a lot of work.
Amazing. Amazing. I would love to be a guest at your house to have some fresh pie.
Well, I don't cook.
Oh,
In fact, yeah, all this stuff like the apricots and everything, which I love to eat apricots, and I'm looking out my window and they're just about right, but
oof.
they get painted more than they get eaten.
Eaten.
But when my kids were little, I would, buy fruits like watermelon and stuff like this, and they got into the habit of asking, "Mom, can we eat this fruit, or is this for a painting?" So that was pretty funny.
Oh, that's adorable. Yeah, I mean, if I was a kid and I knew you were painting, I would also be like, I don't want to eat my mom's like
Yeah, don't.
basically the sitter, right? Because at this
Yeah,
point, the way that you're referring to your garden and your flowers, it's almost like when you paint them, it's like a portrait more than a still
right.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, don't eat the props.
No. Oh man. But so now that we know that you have loved flowers forever, um now comes the question of when did this love develop into following the path of actually, making paintings of them? When did you decide I want to be an artist?
Well, so I come from a pretty talented family, but most everybody is musical in my family. My mother was a professional singer. We've got a lot of singers and a lot of musicians in our family, but I was the only one that took the path of painting. But yeah, I was always doing creative things growing up. My grandmother's. I want to kind of fall back and say, one of the reasons why I love flowers so much is because of my grandmothers, and because my grandmothers loved flowers. I loved and adored my grandmothers, and I would walk along our mountain path. We have a cabin up in the mountains, and we would pick wildflowers and press them in a book, and help me categorize them. And I still have that book, and that memory has just stuck with me all my life. And so there's that connection to my grandmothers as well as the flowers, which is why I love painting the flowers. But um, I had, and in my younger days, I actually was an athlete. I was a competitive gymnast and a diver, competed competitively, and won lots of medals, lots of awards and things like that. And so, like in high school, I have high school friends say, I never knew you were an artist. You didn't take any art classes in high school." And I said, "Well, no, I didn't. It was because I was living at the gym all the time,
Hmm.
competing in high school." And but uh, how did so how did I pick up the paintbrush? My mother had taken, this is just a crazy story, but my mother had taken, I was 20 years old. My mother had taken a toll painting class, if you remember, way back then. And this was in the late 80s, I guess, had taken a toll painting class. And she says, well, let me back up and say was taking drawing in college. And this was 1981, 82. I was taking drawing in college, but what they were teaching back then was more conceptual art, and it didn't appeal to me what was going on there. But I took the class because it was like an easy A kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my mom called me up and said, "Elizabeth, come see what I've done. Come see this." And so I went over there, and she showed me this little tin plate of strawberries on it. And I go, "Oh, Mom, that's so cute." And she says, "Let me show you how I did it." And she handed me the paintbrush. And that was other than the paint by number kits that you get as
Mhm.
children, that was the first time I'd actually picked up a paintbrush and started painting. And I thought, well, this is really fun. And so that led me into the decorative art world, where I started studying with a master decorative artist named Mary Jo Leisure, who is an incredible artist, beautiful person inside and out. We kind of joke around that she practically raised me, because I think I was 22 or something the first time I went and studied with her. But her focus was on flowers, and she has this incredible color sense and composition sense. But I studied with her for about 10 years and got into the decorative art world pretty high, where I was creating my own designs and books and things like that people would buy my designs and things like that. But I'd always had this desire to be more, more in the fine art world, not so much in the decorative art world. And so I started taking portrait classes from the community college from a guy in Pittsburgh, Robert Daly, and who's a wonderful portrait artist in Pittsburgh, and studied with him for a number of years. But I'm kind of digressing. What was the question? How did I become a professional artist?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I started taking the portrait classes because I wanted to paint my children. That was the goal, was to paint my children, and I got pretty good. And so I started getting some portrait commissions for other people's children. And I quickly realized I didn't like painting other people's children nearly as much as I like painting my own.
Mhm.
But one day he said to me, "Why don't you paint a still life?" And I said, "I'm really not interested in painting still life." And he says, "But you're so good at flowers. Why don't you just set up a still life and see how it goes?" And I kept kind of, I don't know. Well, one day I set up a still life and I painted it, and I went, "Oh my gosh, this is what I need to be doing." So that kind of continued to progress, where I was doing more still life. And I in 2004 was when I first got into galleries, and that was just kind of that just all the planets aligned that day for me to get. I got into Meyer Gallery in Scottsdale, went and showed them my work, and they said, "Well, we're having a still life show. Let's have a couple of these." And they sold the paintings at the still life show, which was really cool. But my husband made a good living back then, and I wasn't needing to be a full-time artist at that point in the game. And then I got picked up by another gallery in Park City, which was wonderful. But again, I wasn't needing to do it full-time because my husband made a good living. But then my husband passed away in 2007, and I found myself in a financial nightmare, because in 2008 we all know what happened, and it was pretty difficult. But I had to figure out a way to make a living to support my kids. I still had kids in school, and so I just buckled down and said, "Well, I got to do this. I got to do this full time, because I don't know how to do anything else. The only thing I know how to do is paint." And let me back up and say, I also did wall murals and faux finishing. I think I've done everything possible art related, so that I wouldn't have to go out and get a 9-to-5 job. Because I have worked for myself since I was 20 years old. Never worked for anybody else but myself since I was 20 years old. But so I just buckled down and said, I've got to figure out how to make a good living at art, because it's only me now. This is it. And I still have kids I gotta raise, and a mortgage to pay and bills to pay. So I was very fortunate that in meeting the right people. I think I have angels that have helped me along the way. And anyway, that is my path to becoming a professional artist.
Wow, that is very inspiring. I was not expecting, that you also had to put forth even more effort because of your loss, right? That's
Yeah.
very unexpected. And it's also very commendable that you pushed ahead and you did it, which is amazing.
Well, I would give it all up to have my husband back. I'll be, you know,
Of course.
I would never paint a day of my life if I could just have my husband back, but that's not going to happen. But I also know, had he not died, I probably wouldn't have been able, I wouldn't have achieved what I've achieved in my career. And I know, you know, I've helped a lot of people. I've painted a lot of paintings that have helped heal people, and I truly believe that art heals people. It has healed me. And
Yeah.
if I can again digress a little bit about the death of my husband,
Mhm.
there was probably only 4 or 5 weeks after he died, I had to go teach a workshop, and I had 35 people in the class, and a lot of these people knew my husband, so they were grieving with me. But and it was really difficult to get up there and paint and teach and everything. But there was I was walking around the room and helping people with their paintings, and I was stopped dead in my track when a voice said to me, "You'll focus on one thing and time will become irrelevant." I just stopped right there, and it was a voice, as I know people joke and say, "Oh, you know," but it was as if somebody actually said it. That's how clear I said it. And I realized right then and there that as I've been walking around helping people paint, that I didn't know if it'd been 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or an hour. I had no idea because I had lost all track of time because I was helping people with their paintings. And that was a turning point for me right then and there, that I that not only did painting help me through my grief, but I can help others through their grief or their pain or their troubles as well. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you mention it, flowers is something that we give in those types of occasions as well. We give them, as
yeah,
a present for celebrations, but also as a present for, when someone is grieving, because flowers, they're, that whole idea of the vanitas, right? That life isn't gonna last forever and we might as well make the most of it, which is a beautiful message.
it is. And actually, I say Vanitas. I have a painting named Vanitas. So
Ah, it's perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, wow. Wow, that is a beautiful, beautiful story because it is really hard to lose people. And it's good to, use that grief almost as like an impetus to continue and to, put it into something else, as you said, to heal.
yeah,
Because I agree with you, the act of creation can be very, very healing.
it is.
So that's very, very beautiful. And actually, it also makes me wonder, in your work, who or what do you find has been the greatest influence for you?
Um, well, I'll have to say that, you know, some of the people I've studied with, I always try to study with the best right from the
Mhm.
beginning. And Robert Johnson was a big influence on my career and early, and I took from him along a couple times, and he's just a beautiful floral painter if you know his work. Um, Henry Fantin Latour obviously is a huge influence with his roses. What you know, boy, well, I have loved to have painted with him. Um, and I would have to say, Abbott Thayer's roses painting is is probably one that I could just look at for hours and just weep because it just speaks to me. It's just such a beautiful painting. There's so much emotion in that. And the grays are just beautiful. More living artist, Kwang Ho. I could sit at Kwang Ho's feet forever and just watch him paint. I studied with Dan Gerhardt, such a beautiful person, such a great teacher. Um, I mean, they're just, you know, so I did try to study with some of the best right off the bat. They've been huge influences on me.
Wow. Yeah, those are all great. I also really love Fantin Latour, and yeah, there's something also about those, like I say, like I said earlier, there's just something about flower paintings that they're just, like I said, a little piece of poetry from life. And I
Yeah.
really see that in your work as well. And I can totally see all those influences too.
Well,
Um,
thank-
so I
well,
I wanted to ask.
and one
Uh-huh,
more, Van Gogh. I
of course.
wasn't a big Van Gogh fan earlier on because I thought, you know, the guy, his symmetry is off. You know, I wasn't a real big Van Gogh fan until I saw one in person.
Wow.
And I stood there and honestly, my knees got weak the energy that pours off of his paintings is just amazing. And of course, the more you learn about him and how tortured he was, and of course, I think all artists are a bit tortured, me
Yes.
included. But and Monet's sunflowers, I just blows me away. It's just such an incredible experience to stand in front of those originals and feel that energy that they put into those paintings and still lives today. It's amazing to me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm also a huge fan of seeing those images and those paintings in person because it's one thing to see them in a picture, but when you see them in person
Right.
and you see the brushstrokes and the expressiveness, that's like the
It
candy
take
on top.
it takes on a whole different experience to see them in person, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which actually it makes me wonder too, what inspires you to paint?
But um, I what inspires me to paint? Well, besides the
Yeah.
flowers. Um, I somebody asked me why, how much do you love painting? I said, well, how much do you love breathing? So it's kind of like if I don't paint every day. A lot of people say, do you paint every day? Because I am pretty prolific. I can put out good body of work, especially in the summertime when the flowers are blooming. But I go in spurts where, I may go 2 weeks where I'm just nonstop painting. And then I might go 2 weeks where I don't paint at all. But there's something about painting that things that I'm saying in my paintings I can't say in words. There are things in my heart that I can't convey to you verbally, but I can convey to you through my paintings. Um, and and the fact that I get lost. I get lost in that painting, and there have been times where um, I feel like I'm almost a conduit to somebody that has already crossed over, and they want the joy of painting again. There was my husband had bought me this beautiful big orchid plant, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to paint that." Well, he went off to work, and I set it up, and I started painting. And he came home, but I didn't hear him or anything. And I was still just painting. And he said something and he startled me like, I didn't even hear you come home. And he says, Liz, an earthquake would happen when you're painting and you wouldn't even know it. But I stood back and it was as if I came out of a trance. And I looked at the painting and I said, did I just paint that? I didn't even remember painting it, but it was such an incredible experience. That has stuck with me. But it is about trying to convey what's in my heart that I can't eloquently say with words. I can say it so much more eloquently and spiritually and beautifully in my paintings than I can with my words, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Yes. And I love that you mentioned that you feel like a conduit because I actually have found that as well, that sometimes when we're painting, it's as if something else is painting through us, like we're just
Right.
like this vessel for this
Exactly.
creative force to
Mhm.
do what it wants to do, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's very beautiful. Being a medium for this and the fact that you couldn't even remember painting it, that's
I
insane.
I cou I couldn't. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I actually the original painting sold somewhere around here. Wondering where I have a print of it, but the original painting sold, and that is one painting I wish I hadn't sold. I wish I had kept that painting.
Oh,
Wish I'd kept it.
wow.
Yeah, because it
I
was
totally
such an
understand
incredible
that.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. And actually, now that you mentioned, the specific flowers, right? Because you said that was an orchid painting. Is there a
Mhm.
specific flower that you really love to paint?
Well, hands down roses. Um, absolutely hands down roses, and I so most of the variety that I grow are the David Austin variety, and that's like the painting back there. Those are all David, Austin variety roses. And actually yellow is my favorite color rose to paint. My mother, I probably have more yellow roses than anything. In fact, a couple of years ago I put myself on yellow. I was forbidden to buy any more yellow roses, so then I started buying lavender roses. So now I have like 15 lavender roses. So now I'm on a lavender boycott. But there's what was I going to say about the roses? Now I can't remember. My train of thought just went about the roses. Mainly the David Austin variety, which are like the old, the cabbage roses. So
Yeah, I was gonna say they kind of remind me of like peonies because they're very, very
yeah, they do.
layered
A
and
lot
kind
of
of
them
like
do look like,
bushy.
yeah,
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 yeah, those
for
are
sure.
beautiful.
And
Yeah.
then probably sunflowers. Peonies,
Mhm.
sunflowers, and roses are probably my favorite
Mhm.
flowers to paint. My least favorite, to be honest, are daylilies, which is interesting because I have a ton of daylily flowers out in my garden,
Oh,
and I just set up daylilies yesterday to paint. But they're my least favorite, and I'm not quite sure. I think it's the form. It's the form
yep.
of the daylily that I'm not partial to, as opposed to the form of the roses. But well,
Yeah. At BoldBrush, we inspire artists to inspire the world because creating art creates magic, and the world is currently in desperate need of magic. BoldBrush provides artists with free art marketing, creativity, and business ideas and information. This show is an example. We also offer written resources, articles, and a free monthly art contest open to all visual artists. We believe that fortune favors the bold brush. And if you believe that too, sign up completely free at boldbrushshow.com. That's BoldBrush show.com. The BoldBrush Show is sponsored by Faso. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, faso.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day by day, step by step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So, if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start now by going to our special link, faso.com/podcast. That's FASO.com/podcast. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, we all have like objects and things that we don't really vibe with. Um, but yeah, yeah, I can see why you would be attracted to those really nice roses.
yeah,
Especially also because they have that gorgeous sort of they almost feel much more deeply chromatic on the inside, and as you like come out, they're more gentle and pastel-y.
that
I
is
really love that.
absolutely that is so true, and I'm happy and surprised that you know that, because because that's what I teach in my classes, is that
Oh.
the interior petals are the newest, and they're the
Mhm.
most chromatic. They're It's like us, when we're younger, we're fresher, we're more vibrant. As we get older, we kind of lose our
Mhm.
shine. But those outer petals, they've seen the sun, the wind, the weather a little bit more, so they've
Mhm.
lost their color. And unfortunately, it's the same with humans. As we get older, we kind of lose our flavor a little bit, but we're still beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? I feel like if you only had the inside of the flower, right? If it was only that chromatic part, it looks really lonely. Like you need both of those parts to really balance out that beauty of the rose, that renewal that it has on the inside versus the outside. And I think that's very beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the yin and yang.
Yeah.
Gray, dull and bright, and light and dark. Oh,
Oh, you're
okay.
good.
Sorry, I
um,
had
but
my.
yeah, no, you're good. No worries. Yeah, and I'm actually happy you answered a question I was gonna ask, which was your least favorite. Yeah, that
Well,
that
hold on just a second. I feel bad.
yeah, no,
I
you're
feel
good.
bad. I'm
What
gonna
happened?
say, I gotta say to these guys, you're
Oh,
beautiful. Okay, I will paint you, and you are beautiful.
aw,
I'm gonna feel
they
more.
are very pretty, but there is something about their form that,
Yeah.
at least if I was gonna paint them, they look quite challenging.
They can be. Richard Schmid, he's another one that was highly influential on, I just love Richard's work. But the problem with daylilies is that there's a reason why they are called daylilies, and it's because they only last a day. Because these were all blooming yesterday, and this one was a bud. So, but I just had to tell them that they're beautiful so they don't feel bad.
Yeah, so that they'll be happy when you're painting them, at least in the last moments of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hard part about working with flowers too. They're so limited in their time period. Do you have like a process also to try to like keep them a little longer? Because I know some people who paint flowers, they put them in their refrigerator or in their
Mhm.
freezer. Do you
Yeah.
also have a process?
Well, for sure. So the roses probably are the most gentle or most fragile. And so definitely I will cut them early in the morning when it's still cool and put them in the fridge for about an hour to harden them a little bit. And then, this is actually right there where the pink rose
Yeah.
painting is. That's where I set up my still life. And you can see this morning I went and cut some sunflowers. I want to go paint those, but when years back in the 90s, I was doing wall murals and I was doing children's entrances with lions and tigers and bears and
Oh.
tree frogs and all that kind of stuff. And time was money. So I learned to paint fast. But you do, and even when you're painting with flowers, you learn to paint pretty fast because you only,
Mhm.
have so long. And in the summertime, I may set up 2 or 3 setups in one day and get a good start on every single one, and then come back later and either finish them from a photograph if I have to, or sometimes I don't even need the photograph. It's just about um, what the painting needs at that point. But the pink sunflower or pink rose piece, that was all painted from life. uh, and if you keep them in the fridge, they'll last quite a while. Sunflowers will last a long time. Peonies can last a long time if you keep putting them in the fridge at night and bringing them back out. There's certain tulips don't last very long. They're a difficult flower because they change a lot. Literally, sometimes you can even while you're painting, you can watch the tulip move. So that's a difficult one to paint from life. And anemones are almost impossible to paint from life because they they literally move in real time. So,
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
yeah, but sunflowers will stay good for several days.
Okay, that's good. So if someone was a beginner at it, they would probably be better off with a sunflower first.
Or do something small, like
Mhm.
just a couple roses in a single vase or something. That painting right there was a lot to tackle from life. Um, it was over 3 days, and by the end of the 3 days, a lot of the roses had already wilted, and there was a whole lot more petals on the ground than
Wow.
when I started. But yeah, I would just start with something simple. Don't try and tackle a dozen roses from life if you're just starting out. Start out with one rose in a vase, or just something really simple.
Yeah, that's intense. Yeah. It's fascinating too because you would think, the flowers, they're so gentle and soft. And then meanwhile, you're like burning that canvas, moving as fast as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah. I In fact, my starts are pretty fast. I
Mhm.
can get something blocked in really, really quickly because I'm really attacking the canvas. But then towards the end, I really slow down. But that first initial
Mhm.
block in happens within minutes, honestly.
Wow. That's wow. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Um, and actually I did see too that you have a YouTube channel, which I was so
I do.
happy to see.
I do have a YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yeah, and you document some of your process there too, right?
I do. I have a lot of time lapse videos there, and some full length videos on my YouTube channel. Most of the time lapse videos are taken from my Inspired to Paint online course, where I'll take that full lesson that I did for our paid members and kind of condense it down and do a time lapse where you can watch it for free, so you kind of get a glimpse of my process. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And why did you decide to start your YouTube channel, if you don't mind me asking?
So, well, back in 2008, I filmed with Lilidol Publications, or Productions, which, now Streamline bought out. But so I did 2 videos with Lilladol, and she had put together a trailer, and had posted it on YouTube. And I hadn't had a YouTube back then. And I thought, well, if I'm, maybe I need to help promote this video. So I started a YouTube, but I didn't really work it very well until probably maybe 8 years ago. I put on a time lapse of me painting sunflower. Actually, it was sunflowers in that same yellow vase. You can find it on my YouTube channel. You kind of have to scroll down because it was uploaded maybe 2015, 16, I can't remember. But it was, it has over 100,000 views. And that just kind of shocked me. So I just decided, maybe it's time to work this a little bit better. So probably for the last 5-6 years, I've worked the YouTube channel a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I did see it's monetized, so it's also
Yeah.
giving you a little bit of money on the side.
Well, yeah, but what's interesting is I never did have it monetized because I hated the commercials. I hated those, skip ads kind of thing. So I thought, I'm not doing that. I just didn't like that. But then YouTube went and added ads to content, even if you weren't monetized.
Yeah.
So at that point I said, well, if you're going to add ads to my content, then I'm going to start getting monetized, So that's why that decision happened.
Yeah, that's awesome though. And do you find that how has your YouTube channel affected your sales and also your online course sales?
I think it's been really helpful for people. We've certainly gotten students to join Inspired to Paint from the YouTube channel. But what's also interesting to me is how many people come to my site from Pinterest. And that's another, social media that I hadn't worked at all very well. But when I started looking all the analytics that I get, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people coming from Pinterest. So maybe it's time to start working this Pinterest thing. But yeah, the YouTube has definitely helped the exposure of the teaching aspect. I don't know if it's gotten me collectors to buy my work, but it has certainly increased my student base.
Awesome. Yeah, and I did also hear that Pinterest is actually one of the biggest platforms for people to actually, because so it's not really a social media, and actually it's because I spoke to a Pinterest person. No, but it functions very similarly. But what's cool about it, and I spoke to a Pinterest person once, and she mentioned it to me, that Pinterest is actually like the second or third most visited platform online, and specifically people go on Pinterest to shop or to get inspiration, right? Compared to social media. So I'm not surprised you're getting so much traction through there because Pinterest is one of the biggest sales, I guess, places. And actually too for paintings. A lot of people will also buy paintings through there. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, well, I certainly go on there for inspiration. So
me too.
It is a good platform for sure.
I go there every day. Yeah. That's really awesome. And then I know that, the at least selling flowers, and still lifes in general, I think the two biggest markets I could say for paintings are landscapes and still lifes. Those are like two top selling that I have seen. How have you found your niche, so to speak? How have you been able to find your ideal buyers?
Well, I think it's important to search out galleries that carry like paintings or like artists, and not that you want to go into a gallery that has 10 still life artists, but you want to search out galleries that, like, I'm very much a representational artist. So I wasn't going to go to a very contemporary art gallery and say, hey, carry my work, I'm really different. They're not going to like my work. So I think it's important to find that gallery that fits your style, and find a gallery that doesn't have 10 still life artists already. And I think it's also really important that you establish that you are unique, that your work is recognizable as you, and that you're not just a copy of somebody else, or you're just painting the kind of the same flair as somebody else. I think that's really important for a professional artist, is to establish your own unique voice in your paintings, because if they already carry 3 or 4 artists that paint like X and you paint like X, they're not going to take you on. But if you're Y and nobody else paints like Y, then you have a better chance of getting into galleries or being seen and having collectors say, oh wow, I really like this artist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And actually now that makes me curious. Do you have advice for someone who's trying to find their artistic voice?
That's always a really good question when people ask, how do I find my voice? And I always say, you know what, it's like your handwriting. You don't find your handwriting. Your handwriting finds you. And there was a point in time in my education when this is early 2000s, I was studying with a lot of people, and I would come home and I'd say, well, this teacher says this, and then this teacher said never to do that, but this teacher said to do it. And my husband finally said to me, Liz, you're getting too many cooks in the kitchen. You just need to do what you do. And that rang true. And so instead of trying to paint like this person or paint like this person, I just painted. And I think that's what people need to do, is they need to just get to the easel and just paint from their heart and not so much from their head. Because I think sometimes when we paint from their head, you're painting paintings, but when you're painting from your heart, then you're painting art, then you're creating art. So learn all of those things from the teachers that you're studying with, and figure out what works for you and what doesn't. But let go and let your heart take over when you're painting, and that's when your unique voice is going to show up.
Beautiful. That is very beautiful, and that is so true. It does take that vulnerability of opening yourself up. It's very important.
For sure.
Yeah.
Can we stop just for a second for an edit?
Go for it.
Because I have to blow my nose.
Oh, go for it.
You gotta love allergies.
Oh my gosh, are you allergic to flowers?
Yeah.
No.
Wouldn't that be fun? Well, I don't know what I'm allergic to, but probably my cat is what I'm allergic to.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be unfortunate if you were allergic to flowers. That would be very ironic.
I'd paint them anyway. It wouldn't matter.
Yeah, you'd probably just be there, like, taking an allergy pill every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man. But yeah, I really agree with that, and I love the comparison to handwriting. I've heard it a couple times, but I think it's one of the best comparisons, because you're right. I mean, we learn the same basic letters, but we all have a different way of
Right.
expressing them.
Mhm.
And also, I mean, if you can write like someone else, right, and you try to go into a gallery, the gallery already has that person. Why would they want to work with you,
Right.
right? So
Right.
that also ties into that aspect really well. And actually, since you do work with galleries, what how do you recommend someone to approach a gallery with their work?
So things have changed drastically because of social media and the internet. But I think it's really important now, if you're going to try and get into galleries, is to present yourself as a professional. Even if maybe you're not quite there, I think it's important to present yourself as a professional. My husband used to say, he says, be a duck. And I say, well, what the heck does that mean? Be a duck. He says, calm on the surface and professional on the surface, but paddling like hell underneath. And so as you're trying to get into galleries, I think it's important to have a professional website. I think it's important to have professional business cards, a professional pamphlet, a professional portfolio. You need to portray that sense that you are a professional, and not you don't even have to be doing it full time, but you need to at least give that sense that you are taking yourself seriously, so that that gallery will take you seriously. You can't just be a Sunday painter, let's say, and think that you're going to be selling in galleries. It's a professional business relationship. It's symbiotic. They can't sell art without us, and we can't sell art without them, and both sides need to run it like a business, and you need to run your art career like a business. And unfortunately, a lot of artists, they're so right brained that they don't have the left side. And some people are fortunate that they have a spouse that runs that part of the business for them. I was fortunate that I got my dad's left side of his brain and my mom's right side of the brain, so I have both the artistic and the business sense. But it is really important to be professional, at least look professional on the surface, even if you're paddling like hell underneath.
I love that. Yeah, your husband was a genius. That's a really cute way of saying you need to get yourself together.
Yeah, he had a lot of great sayings.
Yeah. Oh, he sounds wonderful. And then also, do you have any advice, right, for someone who wants to jump into this career full time?
Advice. Well, let's see. Have thick skin. You're going to be rejected a lot. You might have people not say very nice things about your work, and take constructive criticism for what it is. Work hard, paint at the easel. Paint, paint, paint. That's the biggest thing. Just paint, 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 and then paint some more. Again, it goes back to, I always say that, people think that, if you're a professional athlete, and the Olympics are going on right now, Simone Biles, that girl doesn't just go to the gym on Saturdays and Sundays. That girl is at the gym every single day for probably 10 hours a day. If you are a concert pianist, you don't just practice the piano on Saturday or Sunday. If you're a professional singer, you don't just, kind of sing a couple times a week. You are at the gym, or you're at the piano, or you're singing every single day, practicing whatever it is that you do. And for some reason, artists, painters think that maybe you could just paint a couple times a week and become a professional. And unless you're a savant, or somebody that's just out of this world, that's not going to happen for the majority of us. 99% of us have to work hard. And I can tell you for a fact that I have a very strong work ethic, but my work ethic and my determination far out what's the word?
Measures?
Okay.
Yeah.
My work ethic, my dedication, and my love for my art form far out measures my talent. And most of the people that I run around with, we're all talented, but we have that dedication to the art form that if we're not painting, we're thinking about painting. We are research painting. We're looking at how the light is affecting that tree or that flower or that mountain. It's nonstop for us. It's almost, it's an OCD-ness when it comes to being an artist. So that, be prepared to have your life being taken over by painting.
Yeah.
And that could be a blessing or it could be a curse. It just depends on how you manage it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really love that you mentioned that, because I think there's so many people out there who shy away from this career because they think, oh, I'm not talented. And the reality is, like you said, it is 99% hard work
Hard work.
and
Mhm.
borderline obsession. There are people out there who, yeah, it's very rare to find someone who knows what they're doing immediately with painting. And I have met like maybe one artist who's like that out of the hundreds that I've run into or seen. Yeah, majority of us are just trying our best and working at it. And the discipline, like you said, is so important. So important.
Well, it's the whole 10,000 hour thing. You can get good at anything if you put in the 10,000 hours. And I have certainly put in my 10,000 hours and then some.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a career, it's a lifestyle almost.
I tell people I love what I do and I do what I love. But I have bills to pay. I have to make a living at it,
Yeah.
So It is really nice to get that paycheck, but we don't do it for the money. That's the one thing about artists. That maybe one or two out there, but the majority, 98% of the artists out here are in it for the love of the art form. And we're grateful that we can make a living and pay bills. But if I wasn't making any money, I'd still paint. I would still paint.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the other side, right? That's also what makes it, I don't want to say easy, but what makes it maybe a bit more manageable for most of us is that it is something we want to do in the
Yeah.
first place. And just, getting a paycheck from it is the cherry on top. Because if I would also do it, not for free necessarily, but I would just do it for myself selfishly, like I love it.
It is a beautiful life being an artist,
Mhm.
and but it also has its downsides as well. We are very sensitive people, and we don't take negative comments very well.
Nope.
It's this high and low, this roller coaster ride. Like this month has been an incredible month. I've had all the galleries have been selling paintings. It's just a great month, and so like you're thinking, oh, good, I I'm doing it. I'm making a good living, and then you may go a couple months and not sell a single painting, and then you're like, nobody likes my work.
Oh,
Or you win an award at one show and then you get rejected the next time. It's just this roller coaster
yeah.
ride. So it does have its ups and downs, but we love it so much we just keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another great point. It's not a very constant career in that sense. It's not a constant paycheck
Yeah.
like most other jobs. But
We
the
yeah,
good thing
we
is,
don't
you have, oh, yeah.
no, I was to say we don't get a constant paycheck. We don't have, you know, company health insurance or a 401k. So, in
Yeah.
fact, I was talking to Shanna, my business partner, yesterday, and about somebody who had made like, I don't know, $10 million on something, and we both said, well, that is never going to be us. We're never going to be rich like that, but we're going to keep painting.
Yes. Yes. And it's so funny that you say that. Because I have met people who are like, "Oh, I'm gonna be so rich as an artist." And it's like, if you want money, I don't think this is the career for you.
I have to.
You have to measure down your expectations a little more because this is it, I wouldn't say it's a humble career, but it is definitely more for the love than for the money, for sure.
That is true. Although I have been very fortunate and have been able to make a good living. I am very, very blessed that I've been able to do it. And
Yes.
for whatever reason, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, it's worth being grateful for because you can wake up at any time you want basically, unless you have something else. And you get up and you do your stuff and you're basically free.
That's, in fact, yesterday I was thinking to myself, I need a normal day. I think I need to go shopping or go to a movie because it's been
Mhm.
a very long time that I haven't either been in the studio or in the garden working. I'm like, I need a normal day, like what normal people do. I think I'll go shopping.
I know that feeling. I went to a mall yesterday and I was like, "Whoa, what is this place?"
Well, this is what normal people do.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it can I guess it is such an interesting introverted career though to be a painter or an artist. So when you go out into the normal world, you're like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." And then you go
Yeah,
back into your studio.
yeah, that's the one thing. If you're going to be a professional artist, you have to like being alone, because you are alone most of the time. That's one thing I excel at. I excel at being alone. So
Me
um,
too.
I have no problem being alone. In fact, I spent my 60th birthday up at our cabin alone. And my
Oh,
friend Shanna, her husband, said to her, "Aren't you worried about Liz spending her 60th birthday alone?" And she looked at him and said, "Do you not know Liz? Liz is fine by herself."
yes.
So
Oh man, that's awesome. But at least also when you teach workshops, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to ask you, do you have any upcoming workshops that you'd like to mention?
I do. I have the Scottsdale Art School in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've taught there for a number of years. They're a great school. That's March 3rd through the 6th next year, 2025. They have a great venue, and so I'll be teaching there. And I tentatively penciled in also in Mississippi in April. Not quite sure the dates of that yet. Then I have my online art course with my good friend Shanna Coons, who's a landscape painter, inspiredtopaint.com, where we have I think we're over 200 instructional videos now on our site on both landscape, still life, portraiture, uh, animals. So that's an ongoing class that you can sign up for, and there's no contract. It's just month to month. You can cancel anytime, but there's a lot of great information there, and we don't hold anything back. Shanna and I, we give it our all in all of our lessons. We share everything that we have with our students. We don't hold anything back.
Great. Yeah. And then where can people uh, find more of your work and also sign up for your online class?
So just the online class is inspiredtopaint.com. In fact, when we were talking about doing this, we started it before COVID. Um, I had done an online course myself back in 2016, and it was highly successful. Just a 6-month course, and it turned out wonderful. So we decided Shannon and I would do it together. And we were walking one day, and I just like, let's call it Inspired to Paint. And because that's what we said, what we want to do is we want to inspire people to paint. And I said, well, let's call it Inspired to Paint. And I thought, there's no way that domain is available. When I went home and Googled it and it was available, I couldn't believe it. It was just all meant to be. But we have 4 different memberships. You can either have an all access pass that includes everything we have, or there's a VIP pass, which is like you get everything, but it's for like a 3, 6, or 12-month membership plan that's just a one-time fee. Or you have a Robbins membership where you just study with me, or you will have a Coons membership where you just study with Shanna. But our all access pass is our most popular pass that most everybody joins. We do group critiques, business tips, concept lessons, full length lessons, product reviews, art history, all that kind of stuff. And then my website is elizabethrobbinsart.com or robinsfineart.com. You can find my work there. You can find it on Instagram, Elizabeth Robbins Art, on Facebook, Elizabeth Robbins Art, and I've got about 7 or 8 galleries that represent me across the country. That's where you can see all my work.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on the show and for all of your awesome advice and for being so inspiring.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I just hope everyone is inspired to paint after this.
I mean, I sure am.